Welcome to Station Tutorials. Today we will be creating the background used in Justin Bieber's new music video, Boyfriend. We will be utilizing both trapcode form and trapcode particular. Without further ado, let's launch After Effects and let's get started. Alright, so in After Effects, we're going to make a new comp, 1920 by 1080 at 23976, 10 seconds is fine, let's hit OK. And we're going to make a new solid. And let's make sure it's the comp size, and we're going to name this floor. Hit OK. And then we're going to go down and add trapcode form. Okay, and now let's go over to the base form and particles in Z, let's bring it down to 1 because we only need one layer. And then size in X is going to be 1920, so it'll expand across. And let's bring the size in Y up to 1080, so it'll fill the frame completely. Now let's rotate that along the X axis at 90 degrees, and then let's bring it down on the Y axis to the bottom here. Alright, and then if you increase the particles in X, you'll see it adds more along the X axis, and the same thing in the Y. But the default is 70, and for right now, that's what we're going to work with. Okay. So let's change the size in X to 1200, and the size in Y down to 500. And that'll give us our floor here. And we're going to bring this down along the Y even further here. Let's turn on the title safe here so we have a little guideline. So we're going to make another new solid, and we're going to make this white. And then let's turn it off, make sure it's still highlighted. And then we're going to grab the ellipse tool and then draw a circle here just along this middle crosshair. And then if you double click, we can resize here. We just want to make sure this is aligned in the center. Okay, and we can turn that back on now. Take that mask and let's feather it out by about 3 pixels. And we'll make the mask expansion at about -3 here, so it'll just kind of soften that edge nicely. And then by hitting Command D, we'll duplicate this, and let's take the feather by hitting F and feather it out even more, so it kind of looks like it's emitting this light here. And then we'll bring that expansion down as well, so it's not glowing too far. And maybe bring the feather down to 400, maybe even 300 here. There we go. Okay, so now it's got this nice glow. And if we take our original, we can feather that out even a little bit more. Maybe about 12 is too much. 5 looks good there. Okay. Now let's duplicate it one more time. And we're going to make this one kind of a light blue, a very light blue. Just to kind of add a little bit of color here, not too much. It's very light. And now we can take this pale blue and feather this out a little bit more, so that it blends a little bit better here. And then bring the expansion down again. Okay. And then we can even bring the opacity down so it blends a little bit better. I'm gonna go ahead and put this one on the bottom and then bring the expansion down on the one in the middle here. I want to give this a very just blue halo kind of effect along the edge here. What we'll do then, grab both of these and scale both of these up back to the original size that we had. And then let's select all 3 of these and hit Layer, Pre-Compose, and we'll call this Moon. And hit OK. Okay, so there's our moon there. Now our floor, let's bring that down so it kind of matches up here along this bottom line here, so we have some guidelines to follow. And then let's make another new solid and just make it black. It's okay. And we're going to label this smoke. Hit OK. Alright, now we're going to add trapcode particular. And if we go to the middle here and turn the moon and the floor off, you can see we have our particles. Okay, let's grab these particles and bring them to the front here so it starts out where there's already particles. And then let's change our particles a second to 500. And we're going to change this to a box emitter. And along the X here, we will change this to 2000. So it'll stretch across the x-axis. And then we'll bring this down along the y so that it is closer to our floor. And let's turn our floor back on so we have a reference point there. Okay. And then let's bring the smoke to the bottom of our comp here. And let's bring up the emitter size in Z a little bit. 500 should work for that. Let's bring up the size to about 125. And then bring this down to half just so it's easier on us here. And change the opacity to 1. And now you can see we have our smoke look going here. And I'm going to change the opacity over life so that it comes in quickly and then dies slowly. Okay, 3 seconds is fine for a particle life. That's good. And let's change the emitter size in Y to 1500 so it stretches across the frame here. And let's bring our particles a second up to 800. And then let's change our opacity to 0.7 maybe here. There we go. And let's change the size in X to match our floor for 1200. Because remember, our floor size in X was 1200. And now the smoke is matched to the floor. And then let's bring our particles a second down to 700 here. And then change the size in Y to 1700. There we go. It's looking better now. Let's put a nice feathered transition here. So I'm going to go Effect Linear Wipe. And then make sure it's set at 0 degrees. And let's drag this up to about 10% there. And you can see now it'll match so it's not below the floor. Feather this out a little bit. Let's see, about 8. That's good. Okay. There we go. So now the smoke looks like it's coming out of the floor, and we can turn our moon back on. And now if you want to here, you can also add a glow to the floor, which I didn't end up using in the final, but I thought it was an interesting look. So you can play around with the parameters there and see if you get something that you like. All right, let's grab our green screen clip here. Let's grab the pen tool. And we're just going to trace around the feet here. He doesn't move in this shot. His feet don't move in this shot, so I'm going to just mask out the feet here because the floor isn't lit that well, and I don't want to have to deal with this dirt here on the floor. So let's mask around our character here, and close off the mask. Let's bring it back to fit, and let's feather this out by about 2 pixels, and then shrink the expansion by 1. On the mask here, and let's grab the key light, and then let's select our green, and let's change it to screen matte so we can see what we're working with here. Bring the screen gain up to about 108, and then let's change the pre-blur to 2, and let's bring up the clip black. See here, about 30. Okay, and let's bring down the white. Maybe bring up the gain even a little bit more here. There we go. Make a few more adjustments here, and as you can see, our floor there, that's why I masked that out, because that's going to be rough as far as keying that out. Alright, so bring the screen gain down maybe to about 110. That'll give us a little bit more detail in there, and then let's change it to hard color to keep our blacks there. Let's shrink this down by about 1 and soften it up by about 1, and then let's change it to the final result. Okay, so there's our key. Alright, not too shabby. I'm going to add an edge blur here just to kind of soften up the edges even more by about 2 pixels. Should be good, just so it's not too sharp or we don't get any pixels dancing on us. And then I'm going to move him over on the x-axis to center him up here on our crosshair, just like we did with our moon. Also, let's push him back to like the middle of our floor that we have going here. Now let's add a light wrap. And then let's select the moon for our background layer, and now you can see that it's kind of putting a glow around his outer edge here if we increase the width a little bit. And now you can see we have a nice wrap on the character as if he was actually in the scene. And let's blend it with the original by about 30%, and you can maybe increase the brightness here. So, okay, now that's looking good. That's looking good. One more thing we're going to do here is we're going to add a reflection. VC Reflect. Let's line up the floor position here and change the composite mode to behind original, and we will darken the tint to a blackish gray here, and then we're going to zoom in here, and we want to line up this shadow so it cuts off right here where our floor cuts off. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring down the reflection distance about 7%, and then maybe just blur it out a little bit so it's not so sharp. Then maybe refine the reflection distance here a little bit more. Okay, it's looking good there. Alright, let's bring it back to fit again. I'm going to add a new adjustment layer now, and we can add a curves layer here just to maybe give it a little bit of blue tint here. Maybe bring up the blues just a smidgen, not too much, just a little bit. Maybe put in a little curves adjustment here on the RGB so that way it kind of makes it a little bit more contrasty. Alright, I'm going to add another adjustment layer now and bring this down just below the moon and above the floor, and we're going to add a fast blur to this. Repeat edge pixels, and let's put a blur about 8. And then we're going to grab a rectangle mask here and just trace from the outskirts of the moon here, and we're just going to grab the floor here. And you'll see why in a second here. I'm going to make this mask just so it's selecting the floor and not too much more. And then we're going to invert this mask, and we're going to feather it out. So now our floor is in focus right under his feet, and then it kind of blurs off to the edges here. And this mask should be in line with the edges of the moon. It starts to drop off right there, and that'll get the look that we're going for. That way everything is focused right on the center of the frame. Great, and then we can relabel this blur. Alright. Alright guys, here's the final effect that I ended up with. I put a slow camera push in on it as well. This is how we did this shot. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned a little bit. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for joining me.